It is.
You can go your own way. Go your own way. You can call it another lonely day.
All right, guys.
Monday.
Song of the day. We love that song. We love Fleetwood Mac, actually. I saw them when they were in Toronto last year.
Yep.
They were fantastic. Still going strong. And that's
Crazy, because they're what, 1,000,000 years old?
Yeah. They're older than me.
Like dinosaurs.
That's old.
It's okay. But you know what? You can go your own way.
You can go your own way. So, and that's the right way to go.
Always the right way to go. Because if you go someone else's way, you might as well just go with them.
Exactly.
And let them, and you can just ride the train with them.
Yeah, you could be a little lemming.
Yeah, or you can, sit on the train and watch them do everything fun.
Exactly. So, hi, guys. Good morning. It's Monday. And we are together. So we're still in our bubble, our little
family
circle.
bubbles. Yeah.
So we're still good, even though I know you're allowed to expand in stage 3 and all that stuff. We're still careful.
Yeah, we're doing good.
So anyways, welcome. So today is about personal branding.
Or business branding.
Or branding.
Branding. But that's why the song, You Can Go Your Own Way, because I find so many people try to create a brand based on what other people are doing. And that's a big problem because you need to put your own voice into it, your own actions, your own personality. I actually did a branding workshop. I can't remember how many years ago. It might have been 4, 3. I can't remember. And I showed up with a paper bag over my head. And they're all like, what? And I said, well, that's kind of what people do online. They basically either don't want to show themselves, so they literally put a paper bag over their head, and you don't really know who they are because their brand is confusing because it's a mixture of, I like what you do, and I like what Catherine does, and I like what Teresa does, and I like what Barbara does, and I like, what Linda does, and I like what all these people do, and I'm just going to share and kind of be like them, but you're not really showing yourself. So it's like you're wearing a paper bag over your head online.
And the worst thing is when you see something and you think I can be like them, and then you do it and you're not like them.
And it fails. I tried that. I did in the very beginning, like 12 million dinosaur years away. I did that because I saw a lot of people on Twitter back then, was a big platform. And I really liked the way they talked, and I liked the way their personality was, and they seemed really cool. And when I wasn't cool.
No.
I wasn't cool at all.
No, you weren't cool.
No.
So you have to really focus on what your message is and what your brand is and what your voice is, right? If you really want to have global impact and be able to make a difference and be able to be on stages, or at least have students all over the world, you need to understand who you are. And big part of personal branding is your story is number one, is weaving that in. But I think we want to start with something really to make you guys understand what happens when you don't do your own branding. So let's just preface this, how this came about. So I called Stacy and I said, hey, there's this new, because we're, app sumo sluts. so
Call it the way it is. Why not?
So I was like, hey, there's a new app. Let's check it out. And it was an app on, it says, take your WordPress blogs and turn them into a podcast. And I was like, well, that's weird. So let's see what it does. So they literally, you put your Word document or WordPress blog, whatever it is, into this, and it spits out a podcast for you.
Now, in case you are missing this, a podcast is an audio file.
Right.
So it is you talking on air.
Right.
So they took the words, and it's this really weird, creepy, robotic voice that spits out exactly what you wanted to say. So in theory,
it's great.
The brand voice is consistent because the words you're using would be what is on the podcast. So it's your words.
Right. So we thought, all right, well, Stacy thought, let's try it. So she took her words, and here we go.
Yeah, yikes is right. Catherine, it's interesting. Oh, wait, I have to go this way.
Master your brand with Faye Chappell and Stacy Maiden. Here is what you will sound like if you don't use your own voice.
Can you play it one more time?
Can't even handle it. It's so weird.
Master your brand with Faye Chapel and Stacey Maynard. Here is what you will sound like if you don't use your own voice.
So I think you guys
Just-
get it.
Just yikes. That's just all I have to say is yikes.
So I think you guys understand now the importance of personal branding. That is like the polar opposite
Hi.
of branding.
This is what Faye and Stacey would sound like if they used a robotic voice for their podcast and their video live streaming.
So please don't buy it.
It's like the anti-brand thing. So if someone were to ask you, like, what kind of personality do you think your brand has?
Right.
That's the big question, because I think people forget that you have a personality
Right.
and that matches your brand. But what attracts? So how would you define your brand, and what do you think people are attracted to by your brand?
Well, I think everyone really looks at me as a strategist, which is what I do. I teach strategy, and I teach strategy without bullshit. So it's basically, it is what you get what you get. You get, useful value-added materials. It's in your face. It's to the point, and that's what I try to get across. So I'm not afraid of hiding behind anything, and so it's in a nutshell. That's really what it is. What about you?
Well, just to go back to you for a second.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to me.
Because when I hired you back a million years ago,
Mhm.
one of the things that I liked was your straightforwardness.
Yeah.
So
To the point.
I guess from my perspective was, if I had a question, I didn't want to be coddled with, well, what do you think? And, how do you feel about that? I
Yeah.
wanted someone to give me the straight goods, not worrying
it.
about whether I was going to be offended, because I wanted to move my business forward. I didn't want to spend 5 hours talking about it. I wanted to
Yeah.
take action. So what do I do? How do I do it? Let me take
that's
action and
it.
do it.
Yeah.
But I didn't care about whether you were going to go, you know what, maybe that's not the best route to go, because again, with a strategist, they understand how to get from point A to point B, which I
Right.
thought was
And that's
cool.
really nice. Maybe that's not the best route to go. I don't think I've ever said that. I usually go, no, that's shit.
I was trying to be nice.
Don't do that. So for those of you who do coach with me, that's what I'm like. But that's my brand. My brand is to be straightforward, to the point, but to get you from A to
ZZ. It's not just Z. So I think for me, what I've been told, and I think you also need to ask people. So I think it's always interesting to go through a process of, what do people say behind your back?
Right.
And that's a really good thing. And you want people talking behind your back, and you want them to say what's true. But sometimes perception of what people think you are is different than the way you want to be perceived.
Right.
And sometimes there's a disconnect. So it is always interesting to ask people. And the feedback that I always get is bold and upfront. So when I'm hired to help somebody with their LinkedIn and they go, what do you think? And I'm like, it's not good. And they're like, thank you. Because most people are going to tell me all of the great things that I'm doing, and you're not telling me all of those things. So I'm a little bit of a straight shooter when it comes to that kind of stuff. And people appreciate that. So that's the feedback that I've gotten is, my parents are like, but don't they think you're being mean? Well, no, I'm being honest. And my whole point is to make them better. So if I tell them that everything is great, I'm out of a job.
Now don't make sure you guys understand, because we're very similar. That's why we get along. So, but make sure you understand, it doesn't mean that we're telling you have
No,
to be.
that's just our brands.
So you really just need to understand who you are. So if you're soft and you're more caring and endearing than us,
That's great though, but that's
your
the
brand.
thing is that, and that's why we started the day with the song Go Your Own Way, because again, if you try to copy, it's not going to be authentic to you. So you need to be sort of, what does that personality look like? And depending on my needs, there are times that maybe you're not the right coach for me.
Right.
Maybe I'm not the right person to help you, because you need to talk that through and you need to have more of that conversation. But that's just us. So I know a lot of people who are on here. I've had many conversations, one-on-one conversations with many who are more, I don't know what the word, a little bit. Yeah. We'll just use the word softer in regards to their language. But that's what's going to attract people to your brand.
Right.
And you need to be authentic to yourself and
Right.
be real and understand what your voice sounds like and not try to copy
No.
other people's, because your brand personality is going to be your personality.
And you have to be okay with whatever that is, right? So there are going to be, as Stacey said, there are people that aren't going to like you, and there are people that will love you, and people that will take what you say in a different direction than you mean it sometimes, right? So, if we both said we're to the point in your face, and it's not mean or aggressive, it's just that we don't like to waste time, and we like to go from here to here without a lot of fluff in the middle. So there are people that I know that have said, oh, you weren't nice to me or something. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't say anything negative. I'm not being mean or anything. I'm just trying to make you understand that, this is what you need to do to move forward. So
Exactly.
and I'm not going to be sorry for it, because that's how I make people successful. I'm not mean and I'm not aggressive. I'm just telling you exactly where I think you should go. That's all. So what is your part of it? I think part of both of us is we have backstories that have made us have to do shortcuts, right? So a lot of you know our stories. Mine with my husband, who had a brainstem stroke, and I was forced to look after kids and do it. And Stacey's story,
My son, autism. When you have to advocate for somebody else, which you've had to do as well, it makes you a little bit more forthcoming and not. You can't deal with all of that stuff. You need to go and get to the from
Right.
A to Z.
yeah, and that's
really
what we have
quickly.
to do. We don't have a choice. So that whole story is interwoven into our brands, right? So people understand why we do the strategies, the systems, why we do what we do, because it's all connected to our personal stories, which connect to our brand. So it's not just a personal brand, because even when you're doing a business brand, they all have stories behind each brand, right? Apple's kind of interconnected because they have this great brand, and then they have the stories of Steve Jobs and everything that goes with it. So, but I mean, I think if you're the number one thing that we need to really understand is, to identify what your stories are, what brought you to where you are, and how you can interweave that whole connection into your brand. Because if you're not, again, if you're hiding behind it, then more than likely it will be very hard to be successful.
And Teresa's saying that she goes, that's me. She goes the softer side.
Yeah.
And
which
she's
is
that
great.
as a coach, which is absolutely fantastic. And taking it one step further and understanding sort of your personality and who you are, everything is going to be built around that from your story and understanding. So if I land on your website, is it going to have softer colors? Is it going to have quotes and sayings that are going to help me understand what that sounds like? So when we talk about brand consistency,
right,
it's across all channels. So social media, your social media posts, your content, how you're talking, videos that you do are going to have that same feel. And because the last thing that somebody wants is to meet you in person and go, huh?
Exactly.
What? Like, not only do you look different, because that's always fascinating to me when you have a picture online and then I meet you in person, I'm like,
yeah, please.
did you
your
have a
pictures.
stand-in for that picture? Because that was taken about 50 years ago, and that
make
doesn't
your
even
pictures match.
Have the pictures that are consistent. But again, it's the personality. Like, if you're kind of talking in one way online, and I read your blogs and I see your videos and I listen to your podcast and I consume all of your content, and then I see you on stage, you are the same.
Totally.
There's never ever been a situation where I've seen you speak. If you see her on stage, if you see her videos, if you hear her podcast, if you read her blogs, if you look at her website, it all has the same theme across, and you go, oh, okay, well, that's Faye.
Right.
And
same with you.
Absolutely. I try to keep that consistent, but the worst thing is when you see somebody on stage or you see them in person, you're like, somebody else writes that stuff, right?
And you know it. You
it's
know
not
it right
cool.
away. So number one, first, let's just go back to the picture because it really bothers me when someone doesn't look like me. So you guys see us, right? We're doing a live. So you see our pictures and then you see us doing a live. So you know this is what we look like. But what's really scary is when somebody has this really nice, remember glamour shots? Am I dating myself?
Come on, there's got to be people out there that remember glamour shots. Like they were in the malls. Like it was so weird to have these like glamour shot retail places.
So if somebody's got a glamour shot and then you like, let's say they do a live and then you kind of go, whoa, like who the hell's that? Because they don't even look like the same person.
Well, and I had again when I was doing video, I was doing video training, and actually one of the things in my video training is an example of this person who went on video, and I was on their Facebook page because I was doing my due diligence and I always look for people, and very professional, like longer hair, just the way that they presented themselves and the way they talked, and then I saw them on video, I'm like, well, who's that?
Exactly.
Because that's not them. So it's very interesting when there's the disconnect because you're confused.
Yeah.
And confused people either A, don't buy, which is one of my favorite quotes, confused people don't buy, but confused people also run in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be my new quote. Confused people run in the opposite direction because people don't like confusion.
No. And they follow you because they like you, and they buy your products because they like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And they believe you have added value. So, and I like to make sure, there's got to be some consistency, obviously, around everything. So you can't, I'm pretty sarcastic. So, and I know that.
Oh, thank goodness. I was sitting down for that one.
So on like
Warn me next time.
on Wisdom Wednesdays, I'm very, it's my wisdom that I've found from other people or from what I've picked up. But I needed a day of like, just could do what I want. So I created Saturday Vibes, and that quote on Saturday, I can do anything I want. If I want a sarcastic quote, I can do it because I want somewhere to make sure that people understand, this is who I am. So make sure you get it through the whole piece that this is what you're going to get if you work with me or you do my programs. So you have to make sure that you obviously are professional and you get that value and you do the training and do everything like we're doing today, but there's got to be some place where they actually see your personality. And a lot of times the greatest way to do it is Instagram stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
To an extent.
Yeah. I think in all social media, and I think you can express even the words that you use and your tone are all part of your brand. So I think brand becomes a big, sometimes scary word. Instead of the 4-letter word, it's the 5-letter word because it's a big, like people specialize in branding, like that's their job to kind of build that brand. But to simplify it, the way that you talk, if I was here having coffee with you, the way that I talk on video, the way that I talk on again, it's all the same. So again, if I sat here and I'm like, so today we're going to talk about branding. That's not me. I talk fast. I talk rapid fire. I'm, informative, that kind of stuff. I'm higher energy. So if you were to meet me in person, I'm like, sup, like it doesn't match. And again, that's that confusing part. So I think thinking about the type of personality that you have, own that.
Yeah.
Own the way you talk, own the way that you speak, and think about what that translates into words. So how you would say something to somebody across the table having coffee would be the same way that you would write that in your blog. Also, I know that colors can even be really key to somebody's visual brand. So if you break branding down, there's the brand, the way that you talk. So the way that your social voice, they talk about the brand voice.
Yeah,
basically, which is like that personality. But there's also the visual brand, like your photos are your visual brand because people get to see the person behind. You have black and red as your visual brand.
And so you guys understand this, and it's not like we have all the answers all the time. We don't. So I used to change my website every couple of years, like so does Stacy. We just get bored and we maybe every couple of months.
That's the problem with being able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because if I had to hire somebody to do it, I wouldn't change it that much.
And I would do it, and it was okay. And then finally last year, Spencer, my daughter, just said, who does branding and photography and videography and is way smarter than me and that stuff, said, yeah, you're red. So like, stop doing all the weird colors. So that was it. I just needed somebody to say, okay, done. And I feel better about it. And I don't even when we go to, do photo shoots, I'm still wearing black all the time.
Black and red, but it works.
That's my colors.
Exactly. But try not to be too specific when it comes to your logo and your colors, because say you decide that blue is going to be your thing, the particular shade of blue,
Yeah.
the only person that's probably going to care about that is you.
Yeah.
However, pick it and stick with it.
Yeah.
So don't go navy blue one day and baby blue the next day and sky blue and medium blue and
here's a real quick one for you. You can use just white. There's nothing wrong with using white. Little tones of gray. That's it.
absolutely.
As long as it's consistent, it doesn't really matter. When it's all over the map, like don't get me wrong. If you're young and you like to do like pops of bright colors, you might do pinks and greens and like
Absolutely.
in all of your social media feeds. That looks amazing too. But again, that looks great when you have somebody doing it for you, or you're really good at it. So you just want to not worry about that. So,
Yeah.
And when we talk about personal branding, if this is not your thing in terms of graphics and stuff on that side of it, don't do it. Hire somebody else to do it, because you will spend hours and hours and you won't get anywhere. So spend your time developing your voice, your presentations, your thoughts as a thought leader in the global arena, because that's really where it's all about. Right? It's your content and your value. We keep saying, we go over and over to the same thing, content and value, and that's where you go to. So I think what I would encourage everyone who's watching today to do is look over your stuff today and see if you have consistency in how you present your social media, how you present your blogs. And I don't mean colors. I mean voice, the feeling, the influence that you have when people read it or watch it.
And I think that's really interesting because I think reading what you have written in the past, this is where I find it really fascinating. So again, I have many years experience helping people with their LinkedIn profiles. And when somebody comes to me, and there is a lot of personal branding development through that process. And when someone comes to me and I'll be like, okay, well, how would you explain that? Right? Because there's factual information out there to get people, again, from A to ZZ. But how would you explain that process in your particular business? How do you transform somebody? How do you get the results? And believe it or not, there are many times that somebody will go, well, hang on a second, let me look at a couple of these websites and see how they say it the same way. And I just say, no, I don't want you to go to another website. I want you to pretend that you're sitting across from me having a coffee. How would you explain that process to me in your own words? And literally, we're going back to school age where we don't want to plagiarize. So remember, your teachers always used to say, put it in your own words, put it in your own words. Well, that's kind of what we're saying here. Put it in your own words, because that's going to be the key for people to understanding how you explain things, because that's going to resonate with them. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're a coach and you're helping people understand maybe what their passion is, or what they want to do, or what they like to do, and helping them bring that out, the way that you explain that process, I'm going to go, oh, I get that. That makes sense to me. Or if somebody else does it, I'm like, what? That it just doesn't resonate. No. So you want to attract the person who it resonates with them the way that you explain it. And that, again, feeds through all of your website, the way that you write copy for your website, whether you write posts, all of that stuff, the way that you explain it. Just don't do what other people are doing and explaining it in a way that they're explaining it.
So I know a lot of you are sitting there going, okay, that's all well and good, but how do we figure that out?
Right.
Because I'm still stuck. I still don't know exactly. So one of the easiest ways, two. One is to survey your friends and say, you know, what do they think of? What do they think of your brand? Like, what do they think of when they hear your name in terms of your business, et cetera? Because you'll get some really great feedback from people. And then the other is to go back to, if you've written blogs or posts, go back and see which ones were the most popular. So if you had a lot of people, like you wrote a blog post, you wrote a Facebook post, and 100 people commented about how great it was, that means that you found your authentic voice, your authentic brand in that post. So you'll notice that, the truth is my Saturday Vibes get more likes than the regular stuff, because that's where I'm most myself.
Now
And
people are
so-
going to be paying attention more to your posts on Saturday.
But no, a lot of people won't like them.
Well, you know what? And this Teresa's just saying something that's extremely common. So I'm just going to read that out because I know you don't have your glasses on. So her one issue has always been that when she starts to feel confident and comfortable with what she's doing and how she's saying it, someone always says no. Do it this way. You should say this. Don't say that. It gets overwhelming when people offer too much advice and too much information.
So who are
And she's paying attention to their comments and she's losing focus. So a little bit of the should world.
right?
You should do it this way or that way.
I think you, first of all, who's writing this to you and who's telling you? And really, do they have any experience in what you're doing? Or they just think their idea is more valid? I mean, I think you have to, a great example for me is, my son who's got his YouTube channel. He gets, 99% now of his comments are great, but there's always the haters, right? And he ignores them. Because what you have to remember, Teresa, is that 99% of the people who are reading your stuff like it, right? And if and I know everyone says they're trying to give you constructive criticism, but if it's legit or not.
Yeah.
And again, it goes by what feedback you're getting, right? And if that's your coach, I'd be a little bit worried.
Well, she's saying, because you said who says that, and she's saying coaches
Yeah.
have said that.
I never say after the fact. Okay. So if you're coaching with me, I never tell you after the fact. If you came to me and sent me a blog and said, here's what I'm thinking of writing, I will absolutely, if you tell me to edit it or change it, I will absolutely do it and say, this is what I think you should do and send it to you. But I would never after the fact, after you've done something, unless you ask me specifically to critique it, I would never say, oh, this would have been better. Never, because that defeats the purpose. So I think, be very careful with those pieces. I mean, but again, like for me, if I have a coach, I'm going to ask them before I do it, not after. And then if after, it's just criticism. It's just like, do you want constructive criticism? Sure, I'll tell you, but I'll also point out everything that's good in it. Because it's not all bad. Right?
Well, I think people, I just want to focus on the word should. You can should all over the place. There's all kinds of people's opinions. And,
they're all opinions.
And that's where you need to kind of go, okay, well, are they telling me what I'm saying or what I'm writing? Maybe I spelled something incorrectly. Was my grammar wrong? Like there's those kinds of pieces of advice.
Right.
I always get comments on you spelled things wrong, and that's fine. But if they're talking about the way that you said it or how you presented the information and they're saying that that's not good, well, I don't care.
No,
that doesn't matter because it's how you do it.
Because remember, what they're telling you that you should have done is their voice, right? Now they're telling you, oh, you should have said it the way I would say it.
Yeah.
That's why I said I don't criticize, because everyone's words are different. If you ask me to edit something based on what I believe has more impact, but I don't change the voice of it. And for any
how you're saying
people that have coached with me know, I always say it. This is what I tell them all the time when they ask me to change things. I go, okay, but remember, I'm going to say it the way I say it. So you're going to have to take my ideas and then put them into your words, because you do not want to say what I say. It's not the same thing. It's your voice. It's the way you explain, and you should be good and comfortable with that. Teresa, don't ever be not confident about it. The fact that you're saying something out loud and putting it out there is 99% more than most people, and the person that's criticizing you is probably
and she's just commenting back saying, you know what, I'm different. I know my approach is different.
Right.
And that to me is awesome. And she's just saying, I must be real and true to myself first and last.
Yeah.
So forget the negative comments that people are saying, because you're saying it in a way that's true to yourself and you are being true to your brand.
Yeah.
And that's really what branding is all about, is coming back to being true to who you are, being true to your brand. You know that your approach works.
Yeah.
Then say it in the way that makes sense, in the way that you would say it. Forget the comments and what other people are saying. They're going to help you formulate maybe some
strategy. So let's be clear about this. We're telling you to use your voice and say it the way you want to say it. Now, saying all that, there is a strategic method when you write blogs or articles, etc. And that really comes down to structure and the way you're positioning it. So that's different, and that's really what I do when I'm working with a client. Is I'm not changing their words or their ideas. What I'm trying to do is structure it, because I understand how most people, if they're looking to sell, how most people will buy it based on the structure of what they're saying. So that's different. And I would say absolutely take somebody's, ideas and suggestions on that. But what you're saying and how to say it, like your words, that's entirely up to you. And if you change it, people will know and not listen. They won't listen.
Because they've gotten to know you. Even if you're not doing, a live or videos or whatever, they're getting to know you.
Yeah.
And when you start to change the way that you talk, whether it's written words or verbal words or audio files, whatever that case may be, and you start to change that, again, they start to get confused.
Yeah.
And
so I'll give you a perfect example. So for those of you who are in On Point and are being part of our product creation course or our course creation up in August, here's the thing. You will take your words, you will take all your ideas, but what I'm going to teach you is how to structure it so that you can get your points across better, so that you can teach people, and so that it will flow properly. So it's a systematic approach, just like we do speaking or anything else. Yeah. But I'm not going to change anything that your ideas and concepts. It's just that a lot of people have systems, they have frameworks, but they don't even know they have them. So what we're doing is systematizing it, but not changing anything that you have to say. Does that make sense? A little more sense?
Yeah. And that just basically comes down to, again, putting it into the whole umbrella of a brand. So if you have this particular saying, or you say it in this particular way, that's what you need to keep hold of, and putting it into, whether, again, it's your blogs and all of that kind of stuff, and just speak in the way that makes sense to you. Now, I guess the things that I give advice on when people are talking in their own words is that sometimes the way that you talk is different than the way that you write. So sometimes I find that people will
embellish in their writing.
I don't even know what words to use here. But basically they start to write in a way, and it just doesn't translate the same. So sometimes you need to flip around or edit some of that stuff, or I find that people will talk a little bit more casually, like they're talking to a friend.
Right.
So maybe making it a little bit more professional when you're talking about copy on your website, or whether you're talking about different social media profiles and your about sections and your bios and stuff like that. So it still needs to be written in a way that makes sense for your own voice. Right. And I think that's why they use that brand voice as that sort of umbrella term in regards to talking, because it is like your brand has its own personality,
right? But
it has to match your own. So think about all of that stuff, but think about, again, you're not necessarily just talking to a friend when you're writing, make sure that your voice is professional when you're talking about, on your different profiles and bios and websites and all of that kind of stuff. And I guess that's the piece when I talk about LinkedIn that I find it's like, well, how would you say that? And they're like, well, you just kind of do this. And it's really interesting. It's like, well, no, explain it to me, explain that process. Then we get to frame that out. But I love working with the clients that are like, well, no, I wouldn't say it like that.
Right.
Great.
That's
how would you say it?
Exactly what you want to say.
And then they reword it, and I'd be like, oh, that sounds so much like you. Like, you can read those words and you can really get it, and you can really understand their brand.
And some people say, well, I don't have a voice, which is not true.
Yes.
You do have a brand and you do have a voice. Maybe you just haven't really, again, stepped back and said, okay, what? And that's where you start with asking friends and colleagues, when I say, what I do, what are the top 3 things that you think of when you hear about me, my name, what are the adjectives that you think best describe? And then you'll start learning. And I've said this before, that howtofascinate.com, that's how to market yourself. And it's the free one's gone because we gave it away in Mastermind City. I think it's expired now, but you can get it for, I think it's $99 or $39. Sorry. But if you go to howtofascinate.com, it's about marketing yourself, and it will give you a really clear indication if you do the little quiz, which is 3 minutes, of what your personality comes out, like who you really are in terms of how other people see you, not how you see yourself. It's not StrengthsFinder. It's how other people
different.
see you, so that's how you market. And how other people see you is truly who you are. You just haven't admitted it because
whether you like it or not.
because the truth is we think, and that's where we get stuck. And I came from corporate, so did Stacy. And so I was very, pigeonholed in that corporate. And I always thought of myself as that person. And it was interesting. We did a 360 and all these things in corporate where, they do 4,000 personality tests. And I can't remember the name of the test I did. But I remember sitting, and I was a senior executive at the time, so I couldn't opt out. I used to try to opt out of these because I hated them. And I couldn't opt out. And I sat down with him, and he said to me, I still remember this to this day. He goes, "Why are you here?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Why are you in corporate?" And I go, "Well, I'm good. Well, I'm really good at this." And he goes, "You should just be an entrepreneur." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You're independent, you're strong-willed." He goes, "You don't take any crap. You're not really great at direction," which is true because I think I know my way. And it was the first time ever that I did a test and somebody actually went, "Yeah, why are you here?" And he was right. He was absolutely right, because as I started working independently, not by choice, but it just sort of happened. Right. He was right. Everything he said was right. So sometimes we just don't know it. Like I didn't know. I thought I was a great corporate person because I had amazing results and I was very successful, but I didn't really have a corporate personality, because corporate personality are very good at following direction, and they don't want to go. And I was always, working ridiculous hours and trying like all these new ideas that really weren't approved, but I did it anyways because I used to always go, okay, well, we'll make a lot of money and then I get my wrist slapped after. So it's not really what big corporate companies want, but then they want the results.
They want you to fit in the box.
Yeah. So it's really great to get other feedback. And like I said, if you're afraid or skittish to go to other people, do something like How to Fascinate, because that will help.
Well, and that just goes back to what I said earlier about perception. So somebody's perception of you, I know when I started asking a few people, I was actually really surprised by the results of what people were saying. And I was like, really? You see me like that? But then I started to go, oh, that's really cool that you see me like that. And then you kind of own it.
Yeah.
Because you realize that's how people see you. So it can be a scary question, but perception really is reality, because your brand is what people say when you're not in the room.
Right.
So if you leave the room and people are like, wow, that she's this or she's that, or he's this or he's that, that's kind of what your brand stands for. So you can change the narrative. Absolutely. If you're not happy with how people are perceiving you, you can absolutely change that, but it still needs to be authentic to you and make sure that it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think it's a compliment when one of these guys say to me, yeah, there was somebody who's looking for a coach, but you weren't really for her. I'm like, that's good. Because that means that they know who I am. And so they won't put somebody who isn't going to fit with me. And so it's the same with you. I mean, if you guys are, if whatever your role is, whatever it is, you need to understand that so that you can get the right clients. Right?
Absolutely.
You get the right clients, they're successful. I've had clients that have not done what I've asked them to do because they don't work the same way. And so the success didn't work. And that was when at that point, I would always say, okay, you should really be working with someone else. And I can give you recommendations, but I'm not really your person, because I want things done like this, right? Let's go. I want people that are ready to move.
But isn't it fun when you work with somebody who gets you, who is hiring you because of your personality and the way that you work, and you literally go, oh my goodness, worth every minute.
Exactly.
I think that's what you want. So last question, in your opinion, what's the difference? Because a lot of people get confused with, because we talked a lot about personal branding. So this is who you are. You're putting yourself out there into your business. But does your business brand have a different, where does that fit in?
Well, it doesn't have a different brand. It has an extension of your brand, generally speaking. I mean, depending, if you're strictly a brand and you're not a face on it and you're more a corporate person, and you're not in the About Me page and you're not anything then you can establish a brand. A brand has its own personality, right? I mean, I might sell lipsticks, and this lipstick has its own brand personality. If I want to sell it to be to gain more attraction, then I'm going to start going, this is my lipstick, right? This is something I developed, and then my personality has to be the same as this.
Yeah, it's an extension.
It's an extension. So there can be separate. Don't get us wrong. We're not saying you can't, but if you're part of your brand, then it has to make sense, right? I'm not going to sell, I don't know what I would even think of what's like so polar opposite of who I am. I don't know.
I'm looking around trying to find something.
I don't know, but it's like, I'm not going to sell something that, well, let's put it this way. I'm not going to sell something I don't believe in. Okay. So there are there's a lot of programs out there that I absolutely don't believe in. There's no way. I don't care if they say, we will give you a 90% affiliate commission because we know you have a big list. I'm not selling it. Whenever I put something, whatever I put on my Facebook pages or I put as my recommendations are because I use them and I love them and I enjoy them. But I'm not going to put something out there that I don't believe in, because then my brand, remember, what's my brand about? It's about telling the truth and giving you the real deal, right? So I'm not going to change that. What about you? What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting when people they're sort of multi-passionate, so or multipreneurs, and they have multiple businesses. And this becomes very challenging when building their profile or their brand, because they're talking about 3 or 4 different things. So then I go, well, what do they have in common? Yeah. They must have a lot of things in common if you are attracted to all of them.
Right.
So I'll have somebody who maybe has 3 different businesses. Well, maybe they're all health related.
Right.
Maybe, because you're very passionate about helping people, become physically better or healthier or mentally healthier or whatever the case may be, but they all have that common thread through them. So you end up sort of, I call that chunking it up to you.
Right.
So making it about you. What do you love about all of these things? And that's how you kind of weave their brand, because I think there's parts of the brand that you're attracted to. So each business can have a separate sort of personality, but they obviously are attracting you. So where do you fit into all of them, and what are attracting you? So again, the lipstick, the phone, and the coffee cup can all have 3 different, this is, very practical, but it helps me drink my coffee. This makes me feel
You're
good.
talking to Siri.
I'm talking, and Siri's listening to me, and that's really cool because I love tech. So I can actually talk really, because this satisfies all different parts of my personality. So,
but you don't have to be in each brand.
No,
just so you understand that you don't have to be.
No.
So that's. But I'll just a short story, because I've had lots of brands, and at the same time I have my own that have been running forever. A founder at On Point Mentors. Founder at One Red Lipstick. I ran Clarity, which was a health and wellness studio. And Clarity, and I purposely opened Clarity when my husband first got sick and I wanted someplace to go. And I've been a student of yoga since I was 8. So it absolutely resonates with me, and it was great. And we were doing well. It did better when I put my face on it. When I finally told people why I opened the center, why I was doing it, what changes, what it brought to my life, it started becoming more successful. So don't discount the impact you have on the brands you represent, right? Yeah. So I know even in corporate, as I look back, remember I told you that story about entrepreneurship. As I look back, I remember and never connected. When you're in it, it doesn't connect. But I can remember one of my biggest accounts was in Canada was Eaton's, which was the biggest department store in all of Canada. And it was very hard to get into this store. And I remember talking to the head buyer. We were working together for 2 years. And I said to him, so, I was presenting some new product, and he goes, Faye, I'll just, whatever you want. He goes, I'm not buying your product, I'm buying you. And I was just a representation of, my corporate brand. But he said, no, I'm just buying you. You're really passionate about this product line. And if you believe in it, then, it's probably going to be successful for us. So it doesn't mean, so you don't have to, even if you're in corporate, it's still something you represent. You represent the brand, right? And that's really key to understand. So branding is everywhere. The most important part of it is understanding you.
And people will buy from you. I think that's absolutely, people will buy services from you because it's you,
Right.
and they trust you. And that just goes back to right from the beginning when we said that consistency is so important with your brand, because they want to trust you. And brand trust is huge when it comes to personal branding,
Right.
more than it's, yes, I trust that, this lipstick will always be the same and I'm good and all of that kind of stuff. But if I knew the person behind it and I knew their story and I understood why they started the company,
Yeah.
I would probably never buy anything else, because you get brand loyalty.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate goal, is brand loyalty, because then people will continue to love you. And what happens when they love you and they trust you is that they'll refer to you,
Yeah.
because they know that you offer value. So brand trust is where they will start to buy from you, and brand loyalty is where they will talk about you behind your back, which is a good thing. And they'll say, and they'll bring you customers that they know that will be good fit for you, because they understand you, they know what you can bring to the table, and you know how you can deliver results, basically. So
think about a mom and shop, a mom and pop shop
Mom and
that
pop,
you
yeah.
guys visit, or it might be a little farm, or it might be a little store, and you know the prices are higher than everywhere else, but you really like them and you know why they started it. Like, we have an organic farmer down the street, and it's way more money than going to the local grocery store, but he loves it and proclaims how great his products are, and they're phenomenal. So I buy from him, but I do something more than I buy from him. I recommend him.
right, because you're
And-
loyal.
And that's it. Once you start recommending people, I'm not getting anything from him. He does not give me a discount, right? I'm just recommending him because I like him, I know him, I trust him, and I love his product line. So that's really where it goes. I mean, for those of you, and we thank you, those who are watching and are part of Mastermind City, because we know that you have referred us to your friends to say, you should come watch this training. It's free and it's great. And the fact that you are recommending us means that, you perceive value, and that's what it's about. So you can do the same thing. That where you get caught up is where you aren't authentic and you're not true to what you're doing. And then people aren't going to watch. So
And they're going to get confused and they're going to run in the opposite direction,
Exactly.
which you don't want to happen. So just think about the evolution. And again, I think we'll leave you with exactly what Faye said earlier, which is go back to your stuff. Go back to some of the things you've written. Ask people what they think. How would they describe you? What would they say about you when you weren't in the room? And that would be a really cool, actionable Monday. So join us tomorrow at noon.
Stacey's favorite day.
Tech Tuesday. And we'll have a couple of great ways that you can continue to expand your brand.
Excellent.
I will see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.